Danielle, and I'm about to take you through a couple days of my life as I show you what I'm doing in terms of career development. Now, career development is kind of a boring term to me. What I really mean is career design. So I'm in a full-time job right now. It's paying the bills and helping me learn a lot, and I love my team, but I always know that there's gonna be a next step, and I'm looking towards, what I might want to do next in my career. I'm not ready to jump into something else, but I want to know what might be a good fit in the future. So this is where I want to make the distinction between career design and job searching. I'm not job searching right now because I'm not looking at job postings. It's actually very different than that. I'm mapping out possibilities for the next 5 years. I'm looking into different job titles to understand what they do and what their lives are like at their workplaces, and I am doing informational interviews to help understand people's perspectives about how they've made decisions in their career and what they've enjoyed and why they've enjoyed it and just what their story is of their careers. And the point here is kind of to avoid jumping from job to job to job and just being unhappy. You really want to understand, okay, what is that role like and is it a fit for me before you go for it, and actually build relationships that will help you get the job. But you're kind of like playing the long game versus just making frantic decisions. So for the last week or so, I've collected different things to look into, different job titles or roles that I want to understand what they're like, different people to potentially reach out to, and just different things to research. So that's what I'm going to dive into over the next couple of days. And it's actually a rainy Monday morning, so I'm going to spend a couple minutes actually doing like the pre-work to all that. There's an exercise that I always come back to, and I'll tell you what it is. It's called Odyssey Planning, and this is something that I got from the book Designing Your Life, which I always talk about. It basically helps you to take the 3 to 5 year plan and like turn it on its head. You're basically doodling out at least 3 different possibilities of what the plan could look like, but it's in doodles, so it's a little bit less formal, so it kind of takes the pressure off. And I always come back to this. I've done it several times before, and it really helps me understand the timeline of things and map out different possibilities to see which really feels like a fit to me. And if you've watched any of my older videos, you know that I've gone from the gig life and having 5 different jobs to moving into a full-time job about a year ago and having a couple gigs on the side, but then the pandemic has kind of thrown me for a little bit of a loop, and there's just been a lot of decision making with all the different things I've had going on, and Odyssey Planning has been hugely helpful in that process. So I'm gonna take the couple minutes that I have before work to draft out a few Odyssey plans because, as I said, I always come back to it and it's always super helpful. I am back home. It is like 9 or 10 hours later. It is freezing outside, so before we jump back into the designing your career stuff, I need a couple things that will warm me up. The first one is fuzzy socks, because normal socks won't do right now. And here in North Carolina, it is 35 degrees, and that is just too cold. My blood has thinned since I've been in colder climates, and now I'm a temperature limp, so here we are. And the second one is tea, so let's go get that. I got this cute little tea infuser slash mug as a gift, and I think I'm gonna use this even though I don't have loose leaf tea. And yeah. It's so cute. It's got this little steeper and a little top to keep it warm. I know the steeper is like completely unnecessary because it's a tea bag, but it's so cute. All right, back to business. So the thing I was working on earlier today, those Odyssey plans, I want to actually explain what that is and how to do it. So if you think about the typical 3 to 5 year plan, it sounds pretty boring to me, and it is pretty restrictive. I mean, if you think about what is that even supposed to look like? Is it like a 5-page paper or bullets? I don't even know how I would go about creating a typical 5-year plan. And also, once you make it, you've already probably learned more than when you started, and once you know more, your perspective's gonna change. And that's inevitable when you create a plan of what's gonna happen in the future of your career. So that's why I love Odyssey plans, and I always keep the book Designing Your Life that talks about this concept like pretty much an arm's length away. here it actually is. Their little section here, you can tell that this stuff is pretty creative. I mean, look at that doodling right there. So let me tell you the actual steps to take when you're creating Odyssey plans. First off, I say plans with an S because, as I said, this isn't restrictive, so you're actually creating multiple plans. You have to create at least 3 in order to just open your mind. And it's really just a map of what's a possibility for you. So the first thing that I like to do is I just scribble out some notes because I like just to think openly about what a few different paths would look like for me. So I kind of scribble out at least 3, if not 5. And then I go about thinking how to combine or switch them so it kind of makes sense in diverting to these different paths. So basically, first step is just brainstorm out some notes. The second step is to make a little chart where you've got those sections like I showed you, those sections of a year. So it could be 3 or 5 chunks. And you want to kind of draw it out. When you doodle, you think differently. In pictures, when you're drawing pictures, your brain just works differently than if you're making a list. So you want to actually doodle. So on here, there's like dollar signs and people and mountains and whatnot on this example. And I've kind of done the same with little stick figures and whatnot. I'm not a great drawer. I was when I was like 8, and then I just plateaued. It's not like you need an art degree to draw this Odyssey plan, but you want to doodle out a general timeline. And then the piece that they add here, and I will say I don't always do this, they have these little dials for like resources, I like it, confidence, coherence. So you can actually create your own dials to be like, is this fitting to me? Does this really fit what I want to do? Do I have the resources to accomplish it? Do I have the confidence to accomplish it? And I've actually done different dials, so you can kind of get creative with that if you want. And then you make a list of questions that come up when you look at this plan. The piece that I do always do is I create a title for it because that helps me understand in my head, like, what is this really about? And they suggest doing 6 words or less. So in this one of the example in the book, All In, the Silicon Valley Story. Classic. So scribble some notes, break it into the different options, doodle it out on this 3 to 5 year map, create little scales to show if it's fitting to you or not, create a list of questions, and you've got yourself an Odyssey plan. So I'm going to take my notes and translate it into a few different plans, and we will go ahead and jump in. But first, I gotta try the tea. All right, I need a second. Okay, so I just finished. I think they look pretty good. I ended up mapping out 4 different possibilities. 2 of them kind of suck, and the other 2 are pretty possible. One is really about ultimately ending up at another full-time job in the startup world, and the other is actually about moving back into like the gig life, which if you've seen my old video about having 5 jobs, a couple of those came to mind, and I may want to get involved with some of the stuff that I found interesting before. But I do know my life was really complicated at the time, and I don't really know if I want to go back to that level of complexity and crazy schedules. There are some pitfalls to that one. The other one, I kind of built out what the rest of my life would look like around having that full-time job and kind of the timeline for that. But the piece I want to point out is I mentioned that with those dials, you can kind of make up your own style of it, and I actually did. I'll show you. So if you look at the top here, I used capability, willingness, and congruence, like can I do it, would I do it, and is it a fit? And where I came up with that is when you're actually interviewing for jobs, the employer is asking certain questions to see if you're a fit, which I'm talking about in a video that's coming out soon about job interviews. So definitely subscribe so that you can see that when it pops up. But picking those 3 dials that I just made up a few minutes ago actually really helped me understand if this was a fit. And the first one got pretty high numbers, the second one got pretty high numbers, and then the bottom 2 did not.
But I did also take the time to just map out some notes for each of these timelines, and then also a few questions to consider. And questions are a huge thing in design thinking, which is what Designing Your Life, that book, is about. And you really want to just kind of get those wheels turning and get your mind going about these different options and what's possible and what kinds of curiosities or questions pop up when you do look at those options. So that's a wrap on the Odyssey planning for tonight.
All right. Good morning, or whenever you're watching this. And this morning we are doing some research. Yes, research. And when I'm in my kind of like career design mode, I always collect different job roles or organization names or actual people to look into in order to find out a little bit more and hopefully gain some clarity. So this morning I've got my computer here, I've got my coffee. I'm really trying not to spill this, it's very full. And we are gonna look into a few things that I have jotted down over the last couple weeks. But before we do, there's one thing I need to mention that I know you've experienced before. So have you ever gotten in the research rabbit hole? When I say the research rabbit hole, you probably know what I mean, but basically you go on the internet to research something and you end up on some random blog that's not even related to the thing that you were looking into, or you've just spent an hour and you still don't really feel like you've learned anything new. It's very easy to do this. So my way of avoiding that pitfall is to come up with a research question. So around each thing that you're looking into, just basically ask a specific question so that you can collect details that answer that question. And it sounds very simple, but believe me, it prevents that sort of like bunny trail mentality. All right, so let's see what I wanted to look into. And yep, I've got a page with a bunch of random sticky notes of things that I wanted to research. The sticky note literally says things to research. And there's one role, one industry actually that I wanted to look into, one person in that industry that I could have an informational interview with. And if you haven't seen my video on informational interviews, please check it out. It lays it all out there of how to have a conversation with someone and learn about their experience. So let's come up with some questions here. So with this first role, I want to learn what a customer success manager does. So there's a couple people at work. I work for a co-working space and entrepreneurial community as a salesperson. So I get to know a lot of people that end up in our community. And I've heard recently a lot of people getting hired as a customer success manager. So I want to look into that just because I'm curious. So I'm going to ask the question, what does a customer success manager do? Simple enough, but I think it gets the job done. Okay. So that accomplishes the first piece. And then the other thing was I wanted to learn more about the recruiting industry. So I know that there's a super competitive and crazy side of the industry, and I think there's a little bit more of like a small business side as well. So I want to look into what is the recruiting industry like. And then, you know what, I'll ask how to find a good recruiting company to work for. Let's try that one. Cool. And then I do have some people I want to reach out to, but I may save that because I need to go to work in a little bit. So now we research. So the verdict is I did get some good information with the customer success manager role. I was wondering if it was kind of customer service meets sales, and it seems like it is, so good to know. What is it, recruiting industry like? There are so many good articles about that, about just like the good and the bad of it. Yeah, it was helpful to read about. I think with your research, you want to make sure that you kind of cover all the bases and look into anything you're curious about. Because the thing is that even if the thing that you're researching doesn't end up being, you know, like what you're drawn towards, it will help you to potentially lead to the next interest, lead to the next curiosity, or at least just count some things out. So maybe you have this idea of recruiting or some sort of industry and it seems really interesting. Sometimes a 10-minute little research session online can debunk that and show you that that's really not a good area for you. So Research sessions are important for that reason, not just to look into things that are gonna be a good fit, but to clear the deck and show that there are certain things that might not be a good fit, just to kind of cover all the bases, as I said. So I gotta go to work, but I will catch you later today. I'm home, another day, another dollar. So next on my list is actually the book I showed you earlier, Designing Your Life. There is a sequel, which I've talked about in a video before, and it is Designing Your Work Life. So it's work specific. I took the sleeve off, but you know. I am just a few pages in, let's see, 63, I'm in page 63, and I want to tell you a little bit about this one. So far, I would say the original is my fave, but you wait and see, because like I said, I'm not finished with the new one. But there is one exercise from this new book that I want to be doing. I jotted it down in my journal and did it once and haven't picked it up since, but this is something that if you really want to feel like you're getting more out of each workday, if you're not totally satisfied in your job and you want to really make the most of it in the meantime, this is an exercise that you've got to do, but really I'm also telling myself I need to do. It is called the Good Work Journal. So you can see here that I've jotted down these 3 specific reflection questions. We've got, what did I learn? What did I initiate? And who did I help? So the one time I reflected on this before, what did I learn? In my team meeting that day, someone asked the icebreaker question, what do you do when we're not looking? And we learned about people's like little habits in their life that we didn't know that they do. And I made a note to myself that I learned that that's a great icebreaker question. What did I initiate? Finding a solution for one of the tenants at work, collaborating with the team on ideas. Cool. Who did I help? Someone needed a ride to his car that day after work, and so I drove him to his car. That was a great day, and I'm gonna do this again today. And if you're asking those 3 questions of what did I learn, what did I initiate, and who did I help, you're gonna feel like you're getting more out of each day at work. It's not just like one big dissatisfying blur. So not that I personally feel like my job is one big dissatisfying blur. No, I definitely learn a lot, but it is hard for me in retrospect to just identify those things that I did learn unless I'm journaling, writing them down, because I definitely learn best in that format. So if you like to journal, or if you like to reflect and you like putting pen to paper, definitely take these 3 questions and reflect on your work today, what you did in your job today or in the last work day that you had. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, reflection is done. So what did I learn today? I learned that LinkedIn ads can be targeted by job title. Came out of a meeting that I had when I asked her about what they do with LinkedIn marketing when she mentioned it. Just dug a little deeper there. What did I initiate? Mapping out my schedule to help at other locations of ours. I'm not gonna go into explaining that because it's boring. Who did I help? A team member needed a photo for something and I took a photo. So obviously the results of this reflection aren't shocking in any way, but I think it adds up because when you ask a question, it focuses your brain in that direction. So when you ask the same question over and over and over, your brain like automatically looks for that in a given day. So if I'm asking, what did I learn? What did I initiate and who did I help? I'm gonna continue to focus on those 3 things. And I feel like even in a job that you really don't love, that's gonna bring more fulfillment, or in a job you just generally like, that's gonna help you feel more satisfied in that job. So I will be reading more of this book tonight and catch up with you in a bit. I don't know how long this video is, but it's probably time to wrap it up. So I hope you enjoyed getting a look into what I am doing for career development / career design / figuring my life out, and I encourage you to do the same. I mean, honestly, the moral of the story here is that you've got to block out time for figuring out the next steps in your career. It's not just gonna happen. I mean, sometimes it does, but it's like a really rare case. If you are actually, you know, waking up a little bit earlier, like you saw me do this week, taking the time later in the day, or whenever you actually have those little pockets of time, taking those next steps, read a book, reach out to people, do some research, map out those Odyssey plans that I showed you, and honestly, you will be on the right track. I hope you found this helpful. If you do want more videos about career development, career design, figuring your life out, personal growth, all that good stuff, please click subscribe and you will get more videos from me, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye!